Hi there, welcome to my podcast, Naya Yoga and the World. Today I would like to talk about something that emerges with trying to cut out all these overstimulations in our world, and there's not so much talk about it, so that's why I want to spend an episode on this. Because if you remember the last episodes, we've been talking about, of course, overstimulation and the effects in our lives, in our bodies, in our nervous systems, our digestion, and of course, last episode, in our sleep. And maybe some of you which have been listening and maybe thought about it or tried, were thinking, well, actually I don't really feel good now. I'm trying all this, try to get proper sleep and proper food, and I'm putting away my phone, and I'm trying to, don't live in this overstimulated world, but actually I don't feel better. Actually, I started feeling worse, actually. So why does this opposite happen? Well, when we begin to slow down, when we take better care of ourselves, when we allow more rest, well, yes, things do not always feel instantly peaceful or nice. Suddenly something becomes noticeable that has been covered by all these noises before, which are, the F word, feelings. Yeah, or restlessness, maybe sadness, emptiness, or maybe even anger. So these feelings and what happens with these feelings, this is what I want to talk about with you today. Because I think many of us do assume that something is wrong with us when uncomfortable feelings show up as soon as life gets a little quieter. But often, this is not a setback at all. Often, it is simply what comes visible when distraction fades. We live in a world where we have become very skilled at functioning, right? At keep going, at responding, at keeping ourselves busy and distracting ourselves all the time. And of course, that serves a good purpose. Because as long as we stay occupied with the outside world, we do not have to feel so deeply what is happening inside. Overstimulation covers a lot. It keeps us moving, and movement can sometimes keep us from feeling. It's a circle. That is why some people actually feel more inner unrest when they start to slow down. That's not because rest is wrong. It is because space begins to open. And in that space, what was once drowned out can finally be heard. It's making you uneasy, I know. But from an Ayurvedic perspective, this is not unusual at all. When the system is constantly overstimulated, we often lose touch with our subtle signals. Our body is telling us this, but we just keep covering it up. We do not longer really notice what we feel. Or we only notice it once it has become very loud. Do you recognize that? Sometimes people tell you, hey, why are you screaming at me? Why are you so loud? And maybe you wonder, why am I so loud? Why is this triggering me so much? Then when more regulation slowly returns, through our rhythm, through our good nourishment, through rest or better sleep, the the inner space becomes clearer, and with that clarity, more feelings often return as well. I'm sorry. That can be beautiful, it can be. But first, it can also feel very uncomfortable. Because not every pause of healing feels light in the beginning. Sometimes healing first means becoming aware again. That's why people want the quick fix, because they don't like this feeling. They don't like what emerges. You may know this. You finally have a quiet evening. No more appointments. You put your phone away. You say, okay, no distractions today. I want to be a good boy or a good girl. And then suddenly you start feeling itchy and nervous. Or maybe sad, or strangely empty. And almost, I guarantee you, immediately there may be an impulse to reach for something again. Your phone, your Netflix series, or you go for work, or just another source of stimulation. And this happens not because you are weak, but because many of us have grown used to covering ourselves with that noise. Silence has become so unfamiliar. And so has what happens and what appears within it. It's just like you're on cold turkey, You take away your whatever you love, your overstimulation or your alcohol or sex or whatever, and when it's not there, you start feeling uneasy because the cover-up is gone. I think it is so important to remember one thing. So not everything that feels uncomfortable is wrong, first. And second, not every restless feeling needs to be fixed immediately. Third, not every emotion is a problem. Sometimes it is simply a sign that we're beginning to feel ourselves again, and that takes patience and self-love and kindness. Be kind to yourself. Ayurveda does not ask us to suppress our feelings. Ayurveda actually does not ask us to suppress anything. If you need to go to the toilet, go to the toilet. If you're tired, you need to yawn. If you feel like, having an orgasm, go ahead. Ayurveda does never ask us to suppress our feelings or our emotions or our bodily appearances, because if you do, you get sick. But although it never asks us to suppress it, it also does not ask us to drown in them. It invites us to create enough inner space for feelings, to be there without being swept away by them. Don't over-exaggerate. That's a big difference. To feel does not mean we have to become overwhelmed. To feel does not mean we have to solve everything right away. Believe me, sometimes it is enough just to pause and simply say, right. This is how sadness feels. Yeah, this is restlessness. Oh, watch me, I'm getting angry. And this is how exhaustion feels. You should do this just without any judgment or without any drama, just as an honest acknowledgement and noticing. So maybe this is where a new relationship with oneself can begin. Not through a performance or through control, and not through constant fucking self-optimization, but through honest presence, through sitting through staying, through the willingness not to run away the moment something feels uncomfortable. Of course, I understand this also requires safety, a feeling of safety. If feelings do become very intense, an easy way, the simplest way to give yourself this feeling of safety is with small things. Try to feel your feet on the ground. Put them on the ground and just try to feel into them. Or place your hand on your belly and try to feel the hand touching the belly. Notice your inhale and your exhale. If nothing helps, take a pen. Write down what is there. And if you can, go to someone, talk to someone you trust, who will not judge you. The point is not to make feelings disappear even if you don't like them. The point is to meet them in a way that does not make your nervous system feel even more threatened by them. Maybe this is one of the quieter lessons in an overstimulated world. That we not only need to learn how to take in less stimulation, but we also need to learn how to hold more of our inner experiences. Because when the outer noise becomes softer, the real meeting often begins. The meeting with yourselves. So perhaps the question today is not how do I get rid of these feelings, but rather, can I stay with myself for one moment, even when it feels uncomfortable? Can I learn not to abandon myself so quickly? And can I listen inward without immediately escaping? Thanks for taking part in this episode, for joining me in it. I wish you a wonderful week. Try to listen to your inner self, and if something emerges that you don't like, just try to feel it. It will pass, I promise. So till next time, stay healthy, love and light.